Welcome back, viewers. We're talking about immigration and asylum seekers. Tony.
Greg, I want to go on to the issue of what the government's duty of care is. That is the Commonwealth Government.
Yep.
Can you take us to the case of S and Secretary of Department of Immigration, Multicultural and Indigenous Affairs, the 2005 case?
Well, that was a decision of Justice Paul Finn of the Federal Court in Adelaide. And what happened was that S and another guy called M, they're only known by their pseudonyms, were two men who were at the notorious Baxter Detention Centre, I think. And they had both suffered enormous psychiatric injury. The Commonwealth had outsourced effectively its mental health facilities and mental health care in a very spasmodic fashion. These men had been involved in a rooftop protest because of their conditions. And what happened was that they, in fact, had got to such a state that they had to be transferred to mental health facilities. They brought an action against the Commonwealth, and Justice Finn said that the Commonwealth actually has a responsibility to ensure that the medical services provided, whether they're physical medicine or psychiatric medicine, are adequate and appropriate. And that wasn't done in this particular case. It's a very important decision.
Well, Greg, he goes a bit further than that.
Well, he
what
did,
he basically said is that his mental health needs were not only being met, but that he was being treated with neglect and disregard.
Well, he did. And in fact, what he also said in that particular case was that the Commonwealth wasn't able to shunt responsibility off by saying, oh, well, we got someone else to do it. It's a really important case because it has meant that a number of asylum seekers have been able to bring claims, successful claims against the Commonwealth. I'm certainly aware that the Commonwealth has settled, because it doesn't want to go to court for the embarrassment of these claims, has settled quite a number of claims for quite substantial sums on men, women and children who have suffered.
Can I just say, John, this decision basically says that in a lot of circumstances, the government's got a non-delegable duty of care.
Exactly.
Which means what?
Tony, the Commonwealth cannot say, we've given this responsibility to other organisations.
They can't delegate it to someone else.
Exactly. The buck stops with them, Tony. The Commonwealth has a responsibility to take care of these people that are under their care.
Yeah, you've got to exercise reasonable care. Make sure
exactly, those classic common law concepts of duty of care come into it, Tony. They have to ensure that these people are, yes, you know, in a reasonable health situation.
It's almost tantamount to a water state scenario, isn't it? Non-delegable duty of care.
Absolutely, and it's also very much like the situation in prison. You know, the Commonwealth might be a private prison, but at the end of the day, the person jailing is the Minister for Corrective Services, the government. And the buck, you know, this is a classic case where the courts rightly have said the buck stops with government.
Yep. Greg, you're very passionate about this, but I want John to give us the facts of Cheyenne Badri. Can you tell us the case?
Tony, Cheyenne Badri, it's, we've got a 11-year-old Iranian boy who's basically lived in Woomera and Villawood in detention for at least 2 years. And during the period of time, Tony, he has seen some horrific incidents, beatings, riots. He's damaged psychologically, Tony. He's brought an action in the New South Wales Supreme Court, Tony, and after, I think, a 37-day hearing, Tony.
Jeez, that's a long time in court. Greg, just before that, there was a Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commission investigation, and there was a recommendation that the Commonwealth had breached a number of articles of the Convention of the Rights of Children. And they recommended an apology and compensation of around $70,000. Do you think that if they had have paid that money, because I get the feeling that it was never paid, do you think that that would have stopped the Supreme Court action that eventually come about?
Oh, look, it probably would have, because as we all know as lawyers, that there would have been a full and final settlement clause in the claim. But I think what happened in this case was that the Commonwealth tried to argue that it was his parents' fault for seeking asylum and getting detention. The judge knocked that out.
It's a ludicrous,
just extraordinary argument.
It
would have to be one of the meekest arguments I've come across.
And rightly dismissed by the trial judge, you know.
So, look, this has a lot of ramifications for the future, doesn't it?
In the end, there was an out-of-court settlement, Tony, of $400,000.
After 37 days in court.
Exactly.
With costs, with enormous costs.
Millions of legal costs. Millions of dollars in
That's
legal
what it's cost. So the Commonwealth, because of its policies, has cost the taxpayer $1.4 million when it could have easily dealt with this young man.
But Tony, the significance of this case is basically, again, the normal concepts of duty of care apply here, Tony.
That's it.
The Commonwealth can't delegate, can't say we're not responsible. If they're within the care of the Commonwealth in a detention centre, they have to, again, make sure that they are in reasonable health.
Well, it's cheaper to put them out in the community and get them to work instead of leaving them in these detention centres where they're being treated harshly.
Look, you're right. From an economic perspective, one would have thought that from an economic perspective, that government and the opposition, who are always talking about saving taxpayers' money, would say, hang on, the equation here is just ridiculous. This is a gross mismanagement and waste of scarce taxpayers' funds.
Well, $1 million in legal fees, that's a lot of money.
That case says it in itself.
And Tony, you could flip the coin in the sense that this not only applies to detainees, but to the security guards themselves.
Yeah, I think so. Security guards and maybe the prison systems.
Anyone
who knows?
involved in the system whereby they receive psychological harm, they have a cause of action, don't they, Tony?
Oh, without doubt. Greg, this policy of sending, say, 800 people over to Malaysia and picking up 4,000 people back from Malaysia after they've processed them, I don't understand. What's the logic behind that?
Well, there is no logic. This is a political fix, and it is an absurd political fix. It's as bad as and as evil as the Nauru solution, because what both the major political parties are doing in this country is effectively trading people as cargo.
They're passing the buck.
Well,
they're not educated. They don't want to make decisions themselves.
And they don't want to educate the community. I remember back, as a kid in the 70s, Malcolm Fraser welcoming Vietnamese refugees into this country against a lot of opposition at the time. We don't want these people.
Are we talking xenophobia here, Greg?
We're talking xenophobia, and we're also talking a very basic and nasty appeal to issues about race. But what's really interesting, I know we've got to go shortly, but what's really interesting about asylum seekers is when people meet them, particularly in regional Australia where they've been resettled, communities really warm to them. And I know that 2 National Party MPs were very influential in softening the Howard government's policy, because in their regional electorates in New South Wales and Victoria, their communities were saying, actually, these people are great.
Greg, I've got an idea. The next time you go to one of these detention centres, I'll come with you and we'll take a camera. Hopefully, if they give us permission.
I hope no one's listening to this in the Department of Immigration.
Maybe we can get permission to take some footage.
Yeah, well, we'll get permission.
Instead of just taking video footage, let's see if we can interview someone. And just quickly, how long do you reckon it takes to process them, John?
Oh, years.
Greg?
Yeah, 18 months, 2 years, 5 years in some cases.
Look, we're going to have to wind this up, viewers. It's been a very interesting topic, and I want to thank John and Greg. Thank you very much for coming on board. We'll have to come back to this in the future because it's such a big issue. And also, I think there's going to be an explosion in cases involving people in detention, especially children. And the community's going to have to wake up to this, and the government's going to have to wake up and see what we can do about it. Anyway, viewers, stay tuned next week. Stay safe, and see you soon. Thank you.